It's going to be moderated by Christy Powell. So Christy is a dynamic force, and she's so impressive all the time. But she is the, I'm going to read your title, Woman and Minority Business Enterprise Market Manager. That's a lot. You don't have an acronym for that? The federal government has acronyms for everything. Okay, so at 84 Lumber, which is a woman-owned business who graduated out of the program. And I know that 84 Lumber has been a strong advocate of women-owned businesses for a lot of years, and they have consistently advocated for what we're going to call the Excel program, which is like a mid-tier program. So some support that happens after you graduate out of whatever the government program is that you're in to move you to the next level, so you don't become that yo-yo that keeps falling back in and going back out. So thank you and your company for your efforts in that. And Christy also has a podcast called Women Talk Construction. And she's in how many countries?
33 countries.
Wow. 33. So I'm going to turn it over to you because we have a lot of women to hear from. So thank you very much, Christy.
Today's been really exciting. I don't know about you, but I've learned a lot. And we can take a really deep breath right now because this is the last session of the day, right? I am really honored to be sitting here with these 6 women who are making a huge impact, and I might even cry, who are making a huge impact in the construction industry. These are trailblazers right here. And they are making a way for all of the young women who are coming behind us that need to see things differently than we have for years, right? And I'm really impressed with everybody's heart in this room. And if you haven't talked to anybody about joining WCOE, and nobody paid me to do this.
Not much anyway.
Not much. You can buy me a drink later. No, really and truthfully, all the women executive owners that we know, we really need to have them in this room. Because when these folks come from Washington and they see hundreds of women advocating and not 60, it makes a difference, right? So, obviously 84 Lumber's been really good about sponsoring people to be able to come to these events. If you know somebody that's a women executive owner and needs help getting to these events, please let us know. I think all of us could probably do a little bit better with sharing what happens in this room because it's important. It's the future of our industry. Excuse me. And if we don't blaze a trail and show an example of how women treat each other and how we help each other, who's going to do it, right? So now that I did my mama speech, I'll move on. But thank you all for being here. Thank you all that are in the room. Right now, I'm gonna ask each of and every one of our panelists to introduce themselves because I think they're going to do a much better job than me reading their bio, right? So I'll let you start.
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Renee Sachs. I'm Executive Director of the Women Builders Council, which is a sister organization to women construction owners and executives. I also own Sachs Communications, which is almost, I can never add, it's over 35 years, so I guess we're getting close.
Time flies.
To 40 years. I don't know, which is closer. Just very briefly, I do a number of things in the advocacy area in terms of advocating for all women, for contract opportunities and for certification and for navigating procurement. And I've been most involved with WBC on the personal net worth issue, thanks to Christy DiNapoli, who I don't see, here she is, right? And working with some of the other organizations. So I'm an advocate for women, and I also understand procurement and the vagaries of procurement. And what we listened to just earlier really opens the door to a conversation on what we don't know about how to enter different fields. but that's me.
Hi, this is my first WCOE event. Thanks to Deborah, I've been introduced to the organization, and thanks to Renee, I was introduced to the WBC, and I've had the pleasure of serving on that board for multiple terms, so I'm very grateful to be here. My background was in the Merchant Marine. I spent over a 12-year time period aboard ship, on and off, traveling to over 30 ports or so before I was 25, earning an unlimited tonnage, unlimited horsepower engineering officer's license and my engineering degree. And I began my career with my hands in the dirt, electrical, plumbing, turbines, generators. And when I came on land, I focused a lot on mission critical facilities and had the honor to work on the World Trade Center project for just under 5 years. I had a serendipitous event that sometimes the worst and best things can, if you treat them as the best things, you can build things that were even better than they were before out of the grit and resilience. I had 2 emergency surgeries, wound up in a wheelchair for half a year, learning how to walk for another half, and built the business that I now own and run during that recovery period. It's an engineering sustainability business, and we work in the green energy as well as the executive coaching now, training businesses to do what we've learned to do. Thanks.
That was impressive, right? Oh, yeah. So, hi everybody, I'm Deborah Bradley, President and CEO of Deborah Bradley Construction and Management Services, Inc. That's a long sentence. However, so I am the, I've been on the WCOE board for almost 14 years now. I'm the immediate past president, no, the second one, not the immediate one, of WDC. So I was president there for 4 years in New York. I have a general contracting company in New York City. We self-perform most of our site civil work, we self-perform electrical work, building, other building trades, and we have a construction management group. And this year, we also started, almost a year ago today, the DEC Energy Group. So with a focus on the energy sector. And matter of fact, we were just being awarded a new job to build a microgrid in the Bronx. So we're putting solar panels on and putting in best battery systems. And yeah, to create a microgrid in an underserved community. So when we have those big power events because of global warming, they're trying to pay attention to the underserved community. So I applaud that for sure. Anyway, I have 5 people from my team here today, my fantastic team, and so I'm glad they're all here too. Anyway.
Thank you, Deb.
I'm Barb Sabrakis. I'm owner-operator of Ease Painting Construction in Baltimore. It's a high-performance coating company. I paint heavy industrial, marine, and commercial, but everything's heavy. All has to do with chemical reactions. So I started this business after I recovered from breast cancer. So back, oh gosh, in 2010. So I had a 2-year battle, so I really get it. So you're not dead just because you have breast cancer or something happens. It's just a part of the journey. We all have our journey. And everybody that's in this room comes from their own personal journey. And you look where you are, so you never know where you're gonna be. If you think you're gonna be somewhere 20 years from now, you just really never know until it's over. But you have to make your journey. So making this company, you have to have a plan, you have to, and I knew nothing. I didn't even know how to read a blueprint when I first started. So it was a journey, but you have a plan, you execute the plan, you pull in, you evaluate, you redesign, you go back and you do a little bit more, and the next thing you know, 12 years later, I'm sitting here and I've completed 364 prime and subcontracts, in 12 years. Right now, I'm all over the world. I've got a Department of State contract where I inspect their water tanks and I fix them. I tell them how to fix them, and then I go and fix them. So, did I expect to be doing that? No, I didn't. But everything leads, you go through one door, it goes through another door. And women have helped helped me get work. My first door to open was a Latino woman. She was a contracting officer. And I had lunch with her and I said, Sandra, you know, I looked at this proposal that it was an IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. And I said, Sandra, you know, I looked at what I gave you and you gave me this contract. I mean, it was just very unsophisticated. It wasn't very professional, but I didn't know. I was learning. It was that journey. And I said, why did you do that? And she said, because if I don't give you the opportunity, who will?
Thank you, Doris. Let's let Misha. Sorry. I was gonna say we're gonna run out of
Just go
time.
right into the program.
Thank you for what you shared.
Hi ladies, pleasure to be here with you today. Honored to be on this panel with these incredible women. A little bit about me. My name is Misha Homara. I am CEO of Tricor Panels. We're a second generation family business specializing in all different kinds of architectural panel systems. So we design, fabricate, and install all kinds of exterior cladding and finishing for commercial projects throughout the Bay Area. And a little bit about how I actually got involved with the business is, it was on accident. I actually had my cosmetology degree and I was working in salons for about 3 years, and I got in a really bad car accident and I just physically, I wasn't able to walk really more for 10, 15 minutes and sitting. And my dad had just started the business about 2 years in. He said, so, you know, what's your plan? And I didn't really have one, but I had bills and, you know, life ahead of me. So I started working with him part-time and didn't really know what my plan was, but I saw, you know, I could be a big help to both my dad and I believe the industry. So I really I got involved really quick. Our office manager at the time ended up having to leave within a month, so I stepped in fully into doing office management, transitioned into ARAP, transitioned into safety management and operations, and been in this role now for a little over 3 years. And finding WCOE and NAWIC and all the different organizations that are driven by women has been such a big help and inspiration for me. So I'm really grateful to be here and excited for the panel.
Thank you, Misha.
Hello everyone, my name is Roxanne Barrio. I'm the owner of KCM Contracting, which is a union concrete and masonry company, primarily working in the city of New York and also Westchester County, Ulster, and Rockland. So I don't know if that means anything in this room, but that's where we are. My trajectory has been really interesting, and how I got here makes absolutely no sense other than to say it was complete fate. And I think that whatever I've done in the past were really small little pillars that were absolutely necessary for me to be in this role. I don't know if I had not had that background, if I could have actually had the ability to do what I'm doing today. My professional training was in corporate tax, mergers and acquisitions. I have an MBA in finance, and I also have an MBA in HR. So I will tell you that I think it's, you know, the only training I didn't have was actually an engineer. So, however, I did pay the price for that, and you know, I've learned. I told myself what I needed to learn in order to run the company that I do run now, and my history is still being written. So there's more to come there.
Thank you, Roxanne. So this first question I'm going to address to Stacy and Deb. So I'm going to read the question, but I am going to say a few words about Stacy. Stacy has actually reduced 9 million pounds of greenhouse gases. Oh, it's 30 million. So anyway, she's pretty amazing, and Deb is the leader of energy, and I mean not just the energy we're talking about today, but she literally is a ball of energy. So the first question is, how have you adapted and advanced? Have you identified tools, been early to market on modernized in a manner where profitability has been impacted? And then how can other leaders in construction learn from what is working now and identify what processes, practices, and resources drains to edit out? So I'm gonna ask Stacy this question first because she had an answer for this the other day.
Okay, thank you, Christy. I'm not sure if my answer's gonna be the same as the other day, but we'll go for it. So in the early years of starting this business, I went from an MEP role where it was heavy concentration on the electrical aspect of power generation, high tension power generation systems. And I focused on a very niche area of LEDs. And at that time, it wasn't spoken about as often. It sounded like something we didn't really need. Renee and I would have conversations and she would say, I know, I wanna help you, but what do you do? I really don't understand what you do. And what's fascinating now is there are many people in that market. It's actually saturated, and we've moved towards other energy efficiency markets because the early adoption years are arm twisting and education, and it's a lot of spending time and resources talking to people about things they're not asking for yet. So we spent a lot of years in really diving into the tech of LEDs, and we knew that we couldn't just be providing what everybody else was providing. We had to be doing something that was more advanced. So we focused on specifically US-made product. And as soon as I could start walking, I remember being like super shaky in my boots. The first flight I was taking out, I wanted to find any factory in the US that was producing LEDs, learn everything about their technology, and then go to these organizations with portfolios of buildings and tell them how much money they could save. It started while I was in the wheelchair recovering at the facility. I would tell them, don't pick me up for PT, I'm gonna wheel myself. And the administrator sometimes would be alongside as I was wheeling by, and I would say, do you have any idea how much money you could be saving from all of this land? It was a 56-acre site. A year after I recovered, we won a $250,000 job to retrofit that whole site. So LEDs were the start. We twisted arms educating. It wasn't a language everyone was speaking. By the time the market became prime, which it is now, we moved on to energy storage. Same thing, twisting arms, flying out to different factories, finding the people who were producing in the US. And now we're at that point with those technologies. So I started looking for how the areas that I could really lean into, that I'm very comfortable in the market, who's not serving them? What do they need in the construction markets, in the merchant marine, in the services? And as AI became a little bit more of a conversation for people, we started looking at developing our own softwares. So now we're in a position where we can coach businesses, but we can also look at what do they need that they're going to be paying for on a monthly basis that we from inside the market can actually design for them that's gonna work, rather than, let's say, a male-dominated company designing something for women. Instead, women in construction designing something for other women in construction, and then placing that at preferred pricing for minorities, women, and veterans.
So, agreed. So, early to market is key. It's key in our strategy in our company. And being able to pivot at the right moment and at the right time is absolutely key. So we've had to pivot many times, just like Stacy did. Because if you don't pivot fast enough, the market gets saturated and then pricing goes down, you make less money, especially in major events like the Great Recession, 9/11. There's always, every 10 years, gonna be an event that's gonna cause real concern in the marketplace. So being on the edge of new technologies and being able to pivot quickly is important, but you need that to start thinking about that at least a couple of years in advance. Because you need about 2 years to find your strategy, to develop it, get to market, and win bids. So whatever advice I can give out there now is start pivoting now to something else while you're doing what you're doing. So we pivoted into green infrastructure, and we were early to market on that. There was a new pilot program just coming out. We won 4 contracts out of the box, and quite frankly, thank God they made quite a bit of money because we're pricing them because of uncertainty. We don't know, right? So the pricing is higher. Now the pricing is coming down. So now we're then we're pivoting into the green infrastructure, into the energy markets, right? Into solar, into batteries, into microgrids, into whatever we can find, wind energy if they ever had a goal. but I think that's what we're talking about, right? So and I think women do that very well. Women, you have to think outside of the box, right? Don't think in the same box as the same old guys out there. Don't try to necessarily compete head to head, but think of an alternate strategy.
Right, thinking outside the box, right? Both of you are like way ahead of what other people were thinking, which is awesome. So thank you for that. I think we're very resilient, right? So Renee, I think is the next speaker, is a huge advocate and a mentorship success. And I say that because when I look at her and I see how she operates, she literally does everything that she does so that she can help the next generation of women, and I think that's fantastic. So tell us, what changes do you think should be made to challenging policies or systems to better support women in business and construction? And this question's for you and for Misha.
Great. So just following what Stacy and Deborah talked about in terms of moving and pivoting to a new industry, looking at systems and policies, some of the same types of skills and approaches are confirmed. So when you're looking at a new industry, and you mentioned wind, and I just want to comment on the wind because the wind is a new industry. It's not something that everyone knows. There's certain certifications. There's lots to learn. Deborah has pivoted her firm, and Stacy is pivoting her firm in terms of areas to support women. What do women really need to do to look at how do you navigate procurement? So I'm out of New York, and so most of the women in New York, there are some women doing federal work. I mean, you are one of them. I think, does Lorraine do federal work as well?
No.
No. So then you're the only one that I know. Besides,
Small amount.
Well, we got a big
small amount.
We're getting.
Yeah, there's
Pivoting
not
into
enough
it.
women, but listening to the discussion today, you could understand what some of the challenges are at every step of the process for women to operate in the federal sector. Same thing is happening at the state as well. It's a little bit easier. New York State, by the way, has taken the lead. They're over 30% in terms of MWB goals, and women contractors have led. And now there's a shift in looking at other women. So we are all women, whether despite race, religion, ethnicity, sexual identification, anything that might disaggregate us as a woman, we're all women, and we're all working together. And so when you look at these systems, it was something I said earlier, but I probably was talking too much. I think we need to look at the programs. We really need to look at all the programs that are available in the United States, because that's what we're working with right now, to determine what the requirements are, where we need to be with those requirements, and how do we make changes to increase equity but reduce inequities. So we know what the DBE programs do, we know what the SBE programs do. We have a new project in New York, the Gateway Program, and they're looking for MWBEs, but you must be SBE certified with the Port Authority, which is another hurdle. So there's always some hurdle or step for procurement for both women and minorities. And I think women really need to take a hard look at that. So I would hope that the way to make change is to look at the programs, get the data, make a master chart. Let's take a look at what's going on there in terms of what we have, because this morning it was sort of off-putting that there were so many challenges to navigating procurement at every level. And I look at what's going on in New York, the size standard issue. Those are the issues we're taking on. We're looking at procurement in terms of New York State has a reauthorization. We have an Article 15A, and the Article 15A determines what you can do. I know, I'm talking too much. I'll go for it. I'm going to do it really quick. We all hang on time. But it's really up to you to make this call to action and to work collaboratively with other associations. So WBC is out there, NAWIC is out there. There's another organization, PWC. There are other women's organizations that are forming. We really need to work together. So the first thing is collaboration. And the second thing is to really create a disruptive model. I was most impressed with the professional firm HIT, because they have taken procurement in general contracting to a new standard. And I know for one, something I didn't say about myself, I also do a lot of communications in the advocacy area and the MWB area, and I think that's really important to do. So I guess one, look at the issue, which I think needs to be done. Collaborate, which we really need to do a better job of. And third, look at the disruptive model so we can make the changes we need.
Thank you. Misha, what do you think we need to do when it comes to industry? And I got to talk to Misha a little bit earlier, and one of the things that makes me so passionate about mentorship is that I never had one. So my whole goal in life now until I pass away is to be like Renee and really encourage that mentorship in construction, because Misha said she didn't have one either. So she had to go find her own. So anyway, Misha, tell us what you think we should change.
Yeah, thank you, Renee. I want to just kind of piggyback off that. And I was talking to Chantel a little bit about this earlier too, is there's so many different organizations that I think we need to, go together. Right? There's that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And I really advocate for that. And I believe that, especially coming into the construction industry, I had my family as mentorship, right? I didn't have other guidance as far as what do I need to do, right? What are the certifications I need? How do I get them? And then what do I do with them after the fact, right? So I think, especially for those bigger contractors that, have their skin in the game, to educate, right, the newer subcontractors about what it is to be a WBE or a DBE, or can you even, become one of those, and I come from an Iranian background, so we don't qualify for a minority-owned business, but in reality, we are. So it's, how do you kind of work with the general contractors or the builders and owners to get that kind of mentorship and education for the newer, contractors, and then creating that same kind of mentorship internally, right? I think educating, the teams that we work with personally and our own team has been a really big game changer in regards to creating that space, not only for women, but for youth in the industry. So like something that Tricor is doing now is we've created both internship opportunities for high schoolers and college kids. And we're only 40 people, right? We're such a tiny little, contractor, but I think creating this kind of space starting from the top and trickling down is really key. In those organizations like AGC, NAWIC, and WCOE and NAMC can do this if we come together and collaborate.
I just wanted to add something to what Misha said, and I forgot to mention it. So WBC has created a new council. It's the Ambassadors Council, and what it is, it represents about a good percentage of our board, and there's a 44-person board representing all of the major companies, Gilbane, Skanska, Lendlease, all of the large companies, and we have well, you can't call them next generation, but they're next generation. They're emerging leaders. They don't wish to be called young leaders. They're emerging leaders, and we have had several meetings with them now, and I wanted to make sort of a challenge to Lorraine and to WCOE that this group, which is about 40, so it's almost a microcosm of our larger board, and they all want board seats. They're the next generation of board members. Come together with WCOE and some of your younger women. So some of you are, you categorize, you're fine, you're younger, and some of us are older. But it would really be wonderful if WCOE and WBC, along with some of the other organizations, got together. We do a national conference in March. Our next one is March 21st. It's our AIM conference, our AIM forum. But I think it'd be important that we commit also to what WCOE is doing next year, to bring some of those younger women here and to develop those conversations, because they are the most engaged I've ever seen. So I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
I
So
mentioned it at our
Roxanne,
board meeting.
okay. What are the unique qualities? Okay, so first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Roxanne. She's a union contractor. And when you add union to construction, it involves a lot more details that you have to overcome, a lot more hurdles and obstacles. So I applaud you for that. What are the unique qualities in women that make them more dynamic and better suited for construction roles? And how can we support and promote the awareness of both team hiring and construction awards?
Okay, so that question is very exciting because I could probably talk for hours, but I'm going to try to limit it. in drafting my reply to that, I want to change everybody's focus to not thinking of us women who are owning these companies, but rather the women that are out in the field, right? And they give a fresh definition to the word resiliency. These are women that by 8 o'clock in the morning have already been discriminated against about 5 times, and probably 8 more times right after lunch. So they really truly are a staple to what the definition of resiliency is. They are faced with a workforce that is predominantly male, where they are always discriminated against because of their lack of strength or perceived strength. However, what they bring to the table is just an absolute dedication to wanting to be there. The truth is, a woman in construction could go do something else. They're hard workers, because they're not gonna be there if they're lazy. But they could go and succeed in any other career, in my opinion, but they choose to be in the construction field because for some reason they are drawn to that. Now, if you just take that one quality and multiply that by all the women that are out there in the field, you get brilliance, really. Because you have people who are really dedicated to their craft. And I can't think of a better foundation to build something that's really meaningful. The other thing that I will say is, what I've seen when women work for my company is that they're multitasker. And quite honestly, I don't think I've ever seen a woman not do more than one thing at a time. From listening to dealing with a banking problem to dealing with getting a phone call right now from school saying my kid did something wrong, which I haven't read the email, by the way. They're having a holiday, a parent holiday. In any case, we're really, we don't know how to do one thing at a time. That's what it comes down to. So now imagine that exponentially being the trait of somebody that's working for you. That's what a woman brings out in the workforce, I think. And in addition to that, and what I hear more and more from the people who are in a management position out in the field is that women just have an astute sense of attention to detail. They just pay more attention to what a hazardous situation could bring, what could be dangerous or what could be done better. They have a fresh perspective to how something can be done a different way. So I will tell you that everybody has been trying to keep us out of this industry. I think it's actually completely short-sighted, because what we will bring to it is something that it's gonna revolutionize, I think, the entire industry.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. That was very thorough. So Doris, can you tell us shortly how we can advocate? Well, honestly, we may not make it through all these questions. So can you tell us briefly how we can advocate to make the changes that we're talking about today? How can we be better at that? And are there any other organizations that you know of that are being advocates other than WCOE and WBC, as far as you know?
Well, we all talk about advocating and getting more women into this, and we all have to do that. That's very, very important. But not just advocating, providing opportunity. So we're in positions where we can hire people and we can provide opportunity for people. So for like you and many of the people that are in this room, you develop your workforce. So whether your workforce is a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. But you're out there providing an opportunity to bring educating and giving that other person an opportunity. That, I think, is a very important thing. I mean, you can have all the organizations and this and that, but it all starts from your home. From your own, when you sit in the spot where you're sitting, it all starts with you. What you do. I mean, I train all my workers. They're all skilled workforce. We don't have enough skilled workforce in this country. We're responsible, all of us. We have the ability. We're smart. we're organized, we have the ability to train more people. And I tell people, the old timers, I always say they're old timers because I'm now an old timer. You know, when you're leaving a skilled work position, like if you're a craft woodworker, how hard is it for everybody to find somebody that can do woodworking, that really understands how to do it and does a good job that you don't have to take them back 5 times? Well, they need to be taught. So I would say for everybody here, just keep that in mind, and we need more training. We need more people that have skilled, because how are we gonna have these, how are we gonna build these things that everybody talks about, the billions of dollars that we have, if we don't train and have a trained workforce? So that's very important.
Thank you very much, Joyce, that was awesome. So I'm going to introduce somebody who didn't expect me to introduce her today. So the ABC, Associated Builders and Contractors Government Affairs Director, is here with us during this panel. So I may change up the questions just a little bit because she is going to help us on Capitol Hill tomorrow. And some of the things that, and she hasn't been able to be here all day to hear all the struggles, right? So if you all are okay with that, I would love to ask Deb. Obviously, the question I had for you was, what strategies and best practices do you think that would be effective in navigating the challenges for women? But give us a little bit more details so that when Krista and I go to Capitol Hill tomorrow, that we're going to be able, that she'll just understand where we're at and what we need the most, right?
Right, because you know, I think some of the strategies and best practices really need for us to strive to be independent contractors. We need to be independent of the rest of the male-owned firms that we've been working for all these years. So the strategy ultimately is to become economically empowered, correct? It is so that we have a bigger voice. It is so, but we need to build up, we need to collaborate with each other like you've been talking about. We need to volunteer as mentors. We need to maybe collaborate with each other, our businesses, on projects. Those kinds of strategies, and how do we, you know, get those bigger contracts, the prime contracts, all the government advocacy that we do, but we have to keep pounding the pavement. I mean, we all know that sometimes when we go to our government agency, it takes years, and a lot of times the attitude is, well, nothing ever changes. But that's not really true.
It's not true.
It is not true. And WBC has made changes, WCOE has made changes, as I kept trying to say to them, because we changed the WOSB rules. WBC changed the personal net worth cap that was kicking people out of the program. So all these things were barriers to entry for us, keeping our firms, growing our firms, and becoming prime contractors and creating economic empowerment. So a strategy as a whole for all of us, for all of our businesses, that's what I think you should be doing. And mentor people,
Yes, and you're very good at that, mentoring people. Thank you very much, I appreciate that. So I did have that same question for Stacy. So Stacy, you want to elaborate on that a little bit? Just the strategies and the changes that we can make for the challenges that we have in our organizations, and what organizations can be doing as well.
Yeah, so I think Deborah started some great points there. If we're not being seen individually, then we need to be seen together. And I don't think anybody in the room should look at anyone else here as competition. We are market proof.
Yes.
There's no weak business here. So the women that were up here speaking about wind, there's probably room for teams to be created across the room here. Deborah has an energy division. We have unique experience in the maritime field. There are things that Deborah's teams have done tremendous past performance in their jobs. There are things that we can offer that make those things stronger in terms of the delivery. So I think if we stop thinking about, there are other organizations, and I'm gonna be a little bit pushing the envelope here. it disappoints me when I hear from women that they go to an organization event that is a women's event and they feel that the women who have the largest contracts aren't helping each other. Because if each of the women who get large contracts help each other, then more of the women will keep winning the contracts and less of the IDIQs and 5-year-long contracts will go to the legacy companies that are burying them, right? And so if we decouple these contracts the way that Wallace was speaking about, and we allow women to penetrate the market, we have some really innate traits, and I'm not gonna make this about things that men don't do that women do, but I'm gonna say something that women do. How many people here, how many women here have looked across the room at a loved one of theirs who was getting ornery and knew that that individual wasn't opposed to something, they just needed a snack?
Or spouse break.
I actually do.
My husband is one of the kindest souls and just so low maintenance, but when he needs a snack, move out of the way. Because the most incredible thing that anybody would want to do would just be completely off the table. So when we sit down and we see opposition at the table, women have the capability to look at that opposition, kind of flip it on its side and see this is not a barrier, but where do I need to be to change the angle of the argument so that we can come to a place of understanding. So the next time you're in some sort of opposition, look across at that person and figure out what kind of snack they need.
That's really good. We do. There is such a word called hangry, right? So Misha, this question's for you. We all want to start this off with you. So what role can larger construction companies play and organizations like ABC and NAWIC and WBC, what role can how can we support women-owned small businesses better than what's been happening over the course of the years? And obviously you are new in your role and you're killing it, by the way.
Thank you.
And I love what you're doing, but we would love to hear from you what that looks like. If 84 Lumber wanted to help your company, or if ABC wanted to figure out a way to help women grow, whatever the case may be, how do we do that for you?
Yeah, so a couple things I want to touch base on. I think first one is actually kind of wanting to give the contracts to women and minority-owned businesses, because we're in the process of becoming certified currently, and so we submit all our paperwork and everything, but there's contractors that have been calling me for the past year or two asking, hey, do you have your number yet? Right? And so to me it seems like the only reason that they really want to work with us is for them to hit their requirement in a sense, right? So I think taking like a step back and actually wanting to do things for, the greater good and actually helping. But what I'm kind of sensing is they kind of need that requirement. So, are they only wanting to work with us solely because of that? So I think that in itself is something to kind of ponder and think about. And then I think financially supporting small businesses, sometimes I feel like we're a bank. And so I think, actually being able to make those payments when we, submit the invoices with the larger contractors would be definitely beneficial for us as smaller businesses, right? Because we're end up funding multiple projects and don't get paid 60, 90, sometimes even 120 days out, right? And then it's kind of a struggle for the smaller businesses on that end. And then education and planning. So something that I took from this organization called Tools and Tiaras, during WIC Week, they had a saying, be that person, be that guy. And so that's what we're teaching our team, right? If you see a job site that's, missing porta potty for women, or you see something that's not right, to actually speak up and say something. I think that goes into the larger contractors educating their teams to just add that to the process, right? Is there an area for women if they're breastfeeding and need, lactation space? Is there, porta potties that are accessible for women? Is there education for the team? Because times are changing. Like, you have to get with it or you're not gonna succeed in the future, right? So I think being that driver and that change is gonna inspire other companies to wanna do that too, but it has to come from the top, and until they make that choice to actually wanna do this, not for the requirements, but because they actually care, I think that's kind of where it stems from.
Well, what HIP contracting was doing was mind-blowing, and
change.
everybody
Yes.
needs to be doing what they're doing.
Exactly.
I don't know if everybody in this room was listening, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too, Renee. I'd really like to have all of your thoughts on that, how big business, how, just being able to have ABC in the room, Nay Wicks, president, I know that she's been listening to all of our challenges. How can we help more?
Okay, so it's sort of breaking through the barriers into the larger companies. So initially, WBC has always been challenged as an organization to figure out how to get into the companies. We got the women, we recruited them onto our board. We have many of them, as a result of their board position, were promoted and have grown to be close to the C-suite. Some are not almost there, but not almost there. And I think many of them have grown. Question is, how do we get into the companies? So that was a challenge that WBC was facing, and WCOE may be facing a similar challenge, although most of your members are their own women-owned businesses. Where WBC, we built the organization through the model of MWBs, women-owned construction firms, both diverse and non-diverse, as well as the corporate executives, because we felt that was larger and that we could scale the issues. And so, as I mentioned earlier, that Ambassadors Council has really opened the door. It has engaged these women. They're looking forward. Some of them have already become board members of WBC, and as a result of that, they're very engaged. They have gotten their leadership without, and what Misha was saying, it all starts at the top. If you don't have the president of the organization, if you don't have the head of Lend-Lease or the head of Skanska saying, okay, we will support this, that was the first step. But as the years went on, I've been with WBC since 2007, which is a very long time. And in doing that, WBC wasn't always equally welcomed in the room. Even at organizations, Chrissy, at NICA, they said, who are you and why are you here and are you union? And I said, here we are, but I'll check. And so inevitably, and they are partners of ours now, they are actually corporate partners. So just breaking down the wall, getting into the companies, but that's a big task. And that takes a lot of time and effort. So there always has to be an easier way to do something, because that's, how do you get to 40 of the large companies that are in New York? We got there through our board members, we got there through the women that they designated as the ambassadors. And we've created a pipeline now and a conduit for messaging, so much so, I apologize for multitasking, our ambassador council that we met with last week is sort of going off on their own and starting committee meetings and starting programs, and so we need to kind of bring them in so we can all work together to grow intelligently. So what do large companies need to do? They need to support, they need to write a check, and they all have budgets, and unfortunately as women, and particularly if you're in the corporate sector, you have to ask a man. And when you have to ask a man, it's a whole different operative, and women sometimes don't ask. So the one thing I do want to leave you with, in order to make any change, be risk averse, make the ask, do it in the most diplomatic way, and I assume all of you are much more diplomatic than I am. So I'm very direct, and I think sometimes direct helps, but you need to be very diplomatic. They need to understand the issue, and they need to say yes. I don't know if that answered your question.
That is great. Stacy, I want to hear from all of you on this one. You can grab a mic around the table.
I think this, yeah. Is this on? Yeah. Okay. So I want to take this from an angle of, I worked for one of the largest construction companies in the world before starting my own. And I sort of sit in the upper middle part, I think, of our span of experienced women and the years that we represent and bring to the table. The new generation should not have to embrace the things that we dealt with and just thought was par for the course. whether it was coming from the merchant marine background or in construction, it embarrasses me to say that I walked on a broken bone for 2 months and put myself in a wheelchair because I worked for the largest construction company in the world on a project that I didn't want to not be able to be a part of. And I didn't know it was broken, of course, at the time, but would a male feel like he couldn't take 2 months off, right? I'm 44, so I think, embrace the generation of rub some dirt on it. Just go back to work, it's fine, whatever it is, you're just gonna walk it off, right? And women having pregnancies, raising families, doing all of these things that they feel like they can't embrace along with the job, when it should be recognizing how strong you are to be able to do all those things and come and do the job. Deborah said they used to call her the pregnant project manager, the pregnant owner, contractor, because she was on site all the time, pregnant. It's, these are signs of strength. So I think that the way that we could potentially change the landscape is to impart some of our wisdom on the relationships we have with the larger companies, so that Nisha's generation doesn't just have to cut her teeth on the same things that we have.
I love that. Thank you, Stacy. I went into labor 8 months pregnant on a job site. It was 101 degrees outside, and literally had a baby 11 hours later. So I did not feel like I could leave work, right? I was dehydrated, that's why I went into labor. So those are things that I never felt like I had the ability to be able to do. And as soon as I had a C-section, an emergency C-section, and was back to work in 2 weeks because nobody was gonna take care of my customers, and that was my sole source of income. So it's important that we're talking about these issues, right? So Deb,
one more thing.
Absolutely.
When I left, I ran into my boss, not ran at the time, I was on crutches, and I said, hey, I just have to go have this quick surgery, I'll be back in 2 weeks, I'll be able to be communicating. Took my computer, went, really thought in my mind that was gonna happen. I never filed a fall claim on the most photographed site in the world. It wasn't like there would be a, because in my mind I'm thinking, at first I'm going right back to that job in 2 weeks, right? And then later on I never did, because I didn't want to change any of my relationships inside of the field. So I literally lost my income, didn't file any sort of claim, was paying for rent in New York City in an apartment I couldn't live in, but I couldn't move out of, and completely dialed all my savings down and started a business at that time. So if anybody says that women can't or women are frail, they're wrong.
Okay, is this on?
I think so.
Yeah.
This one's on.
There you go.
Oh. So, what I would ask.
It was on,
now it's on. What I would ask, now it's off. I don't know. There it goes. So what I would ask is what I want is a change in perception. So, I want the big firms, and I love the phrase partnering for success. I want them to look at us as partners, not as WB compliance or, I've got my women or whatever. I want them as partners. Thank you. So, and I think some of the firms might understand that because they actually get the model that working with women-owned firms is good for business. So, perception change. And if some of those men don't want that to change, and then don't work with them. So, and the firms that are going to do well are the firms that are going to consider you a true partner. And when that perception change, and it should change in the whole industry, and we want to bring the National Women's History Museum and bring exhibits for the women that build New York, and that build Chicago, and build everywhere. So it's about perception. I think it's like almost like a marketing campaign on top of true partnerships on our construction projects. So that would be my
I'm on board.
Okay.
I love it. Thank you.
I everything that everyone has said is like so spot on. But there's one thing that I would add. One, to get paid always. Obviously, that's for everyone. But two, because we're up against this misconception of what we are I always think, and I have a company where it's woman-owned and all of my workers are Latino. And I say to them, and they're Black Latino, and I say to them, you guys are the smartest, most skilled, hardworking group of men that I have so much respect for. I know you, I know your capabilities, but the people that we're working for, they don't know that. So if everybody is at this level, we're gonna be at this level. Because then there's no excuse for anybody to come back and say, oh, she was a woman, it was her business, and he's a Latino, and you know, it's like you guys have heard all these things. So when you perform consistently as a company, always up here, guess what? That's the norm. You're always performing. So then they start calling, because I deal with the military, you know, when I first started, I mean, who's gonna let me paint their ship, really? Now they call me to say, Doris, what do you think about this? I said, that's a stupid idea because, you know, it's gonna cost you this, it's not gonna work because of this. But they're calling and asking for my opinion. Because when you consistently perform at that level, then that becomes the norm, and then the respect that you just garner the respect. It's not like you're asking for it. You can't help but respect somebody that works at that level. And that's what I would say is the most important thing, that all of us as business women and the employer to our employees have that expectation of everybody, safety, job performance, skill, you know, follow up, you know, all these things that you hear about in Business 101. But does everybody do it? No. And it's hard. So, you know, when you try to work at this level and consistently work at this level, it's not easy, but it does pay off in the long run. And if everybody here does that, which I'm sure, obviously, everybody probably does, because we wouldn't be here. But we're the example of other women companies. I mean, we're the example, and we have to maintain being a good example.
Thank you, Doris. How about you, Roxanne?
Thank you. I was excited about that question until I realized all of these women had to answer it too, so I'm sorry. No,
I got out of order, sorry.
No, it's okay. My contribution to all of this is that unless there is a holistic change from within the bigger companies to really not see us as a mandate that's statutory, we're always going to be playing at a disadvantage. We can be the best of the best, and yes, we'll earn our respect, but they really have to start. The question is, what could they do to make a change for us? And what I will say is, really take down those blinders and realize that women are just as capable and just as dedicated to this industry as any other man is. And the other side of that is from the I don't get in trouble, but from the governmental side, also take the barriers out that are limiting us. You can't expect us to perform and be an equal to a company who is taking on a $5-10 million job and then say, oh, but your net worth can only be $1.3 million. Mm-hmm. Those two just don't match in my mathematical mind. And you can't pull on both sides of the rope. And most importantly, just also change the perception that the old timers have out in the field. I think that I can probably say, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, that everyone that has seen these women out on the job site just don't believe that we're actually able to do what we're doing.
That's great, thank you. So we have time for one more question. Oh, no,
Can I just add something to that? I think too, just to kind of piggyback off of what everyone's saying, is also remember, like, there has been progression, right? So like remembering that, like, it's about progress, not perfection, and like utilizing like HIT as, you know, some company that you can use as like a kind of like a resource, right? And it's about, I think, who and not necessarily how we can get there, right? But a lot of women in here are, you know, a big, powerful resource. So utilizing your connections, and I think talking to the important people in the other companies about, hey, listen to what HIT's doing, or, you know, like, let's actually talk about some of the things that we can do, or you can do in your, you know, level of leadership in these companies. So I think kind of utilizing our voices and our power to reach those who's can kind of help us get to that progression a little bit faster.
Nice. So I'm gonna do a plug for Women Talk Construction. We have a forum called breakingbarriersforum.com that I would love for you all to join and start talking about these conversations, because it's really important. And we're seeing a lot of women giving each other business in there, which has been super cool. But the last question I wanna ask is I wanna ask everybody, we have a little bit of time, so briefly, tell us, how do we break the barriers and get more women into our industry? Just your thoughts. Let me just go down the line.
That's really a tough question, because you're breaking perceptions. I think when I spoke about earlier what we're doing with young women, not young, emerging women, and we can't even call them women, so you figure out what we call them. People who make eggs. That's the latest on it. I think.
My husband makes eggs.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to challenge everybody here is we've really had a wonderful series of conversations. I think it's really important to take away one thing from this and take it home and do it. So the one thing that I mentioned, I'm going to do, because there are people here who have a lot of information, and they know their pipeline of information with the different programs. I think we really need to share. We need to look at all the programs. We need to create that specific activity, put it down, take a look at it, and demystify that information is power only to a few, and really figure out what's going on in the industry. And I think if that's the one thing that I think could make some change or start the change, is to really look at it, codify it, put it down, and then present it. Because I think there's so much confusion. At least I'm confused, and I've been navigating this market sector for a very, very long time. I'm still confused by all the requirements, by all the changes. Did the USDOT or SBA approve of the thing that's moving the personal net worth to this number? I can't keep up, and I'm supposed to keep up with it. So I assume you all know this. Lorraine, you know this. I think it's about sharing the information, putting it down, and looking at where women are today and where we need to be. What do we need to do to get there? Because I think we're not there yet. And I hope you're 44?
44.
I'm 74. So
You look great.
I know that. I do that. However, it is not that I'm going to look great, and when I don't, you won't see me around.
Okay, well, everybody has 30 seconds.
Right, so I'll pass it on. Well, I'll pass it on, but don't lose the fact.
So we actually just have a question, so why don't we take the
Okay,
question?
so yeah, good idea.
I ended on 74.
That's good, I
We're good.
So I've had my, can you hear me?
Just talk loud.
I've had my construction company.
Do you want the mic?
Okay, for the last, sorry. I started 5 years ago. I started actually having my guys work 4 years ago. I'm still new to the industry. And what I'm asking you is, how can I learn from your mistakes so I don't make them? How do I get into some of these things so I avoid the pitfalls? I like the idea of thinking outside the box, thinking ahead, but the idea of, having to repeat the same steps you guys have done is a little intimidating. If
So
there's ways to avoid
let
it.
me answer that question for
Okay.
you. Join WCOE.
She's already a member.
And then you could, and then you could network with us, and we're going to start with more interactive programming and more exchanges of this kind of information.
Okay.
So,
Ask the question. Just ask, you gotta pick up the phone and ask people. I mean, I have a couple of mentors I've had for years with WBC, and every time they have a problem, contract problem, it doesn't matter what the problem is, problem with supplier, problem with the GC, a white GC, they'll call me and say, what should I do? What should I do? Because I do not want them to make the same mistakes. I don't want them to start from ground zero. That would be a waste of my career. So Yes, so please, I think a lot of us would be happy to mentor.
Nice.
So please
Plus,
just
women will tell
talk
you
to
the
us.
truth.
They will tell you the truth.
Okay, so one of the things that we're doing now, and you should all see soon, is WCOE is gonna have a members-only part of their portal on their website. So we're gonna have an exchange, like a question-answer exchange there that will be open to all of the members. So that should be an exciting feature where you could get advice across the country, or even find somebody who has gone through the same thing that you're experiencing. So we think that that will add value to your membership.
I think too, just as like women, I don't know, personally I struggle asking for help, but when you actually do reach out for help, you'll be surprised how much the women in the organization actually want to help you. And if they don't know the answer, they know someone who does know the answer. So I think it's that just initial step of, you know, making that call or sending that message, and just, I think that's the first step, and you'll see that women are here to help you. And I can speak from my own experience.
Okay, hello, I waited all day to use the mic, so. Okay, so I am in insurance P&C, so I'm more of a service and support to you guys. And one thing that I'm really passionate about is lifting you up to help you succeed. And I'm just curious if you guys have any advice on how I can do that every day to, you know, bring you guys further. And also, if you want to talk offline about it, we can use this time for something else.
You're here.
Okay.
You're supporting us, right?
Yes,
I mean,
definitely.
totally, like,
Yes.
you're here.
I think too, like using our social media platforms, educating others on like what is going on and who maybe you're talking with, and sharing some of the stories. I think just the education aspect, at least that's the biggest thing, of just sharing like, this is what's going on, and creating kind of that space for others to interact, I think is something that would be helpful.
That's great. Well, we have a hard stop right at 4:15.
Yes.
Okay, it's 4:14.
Oh,
There were a few questions that this sort of answers. Provide safe harbors for women. So women may come into STEM fields and may wind up in construction, but they also may leave if they have bad experiences with companies that don't offer safe harbors for them. So everyone here that hires a woman early on has the opportunity to keep her in the field, and it's a great responsibility. So to your point and to yours, make safe harbors for women, lift them up, create a network of champions and stakeholders for them. Everyone here is doing that for women in one way or another, and that's incredible. Yes.
okay, one last thing. So I'm a big person, a promoter of action items. So everybody in this room, you have an action item. You're gonna reach out to 5 people to try to get 5 new members, because the way we make change is by growing and having a louder voice. So Claire, you're gonna send out a calendar invite to everybody and remind them every single week that's on this list. Did you reach out to your 5 people?
I already reached out.
And I would like everybody to actually respond. If you say no, just say no, I only reached 1, no, I didn't reach anybody. But I'm giving you an action item. We need more women, right? We need more voices.
I already reached
Is that it?
Yes.
All right.
The last time today that I'm gonna give away the gift of no value to these wonderful women who are up here. And the reason why we have this hard stop is because people have to get out and make sure that they get to the place on time. So as a reminder, thank you so much, Chrissy, for moderating. Thank you, everybody on the panel, for your participation.